Welcome back to the program. Glad you're with us this morning. And please join me in saying good morning to my very good friend, our host of St. Maarten Insights News that matters to you, and the managing editor of Career Broadcasting Network News, my good buddy Emil Lee. Welcome back, sir.
Good morning, Sock. Good morning, listeners. Great to be here.
And always nice to see you on a Thursday morning. I am so I've been off island for a little bit. You were off island for a little bit. I I can't help but wonder about the shenanigans that's going on at GEBE. I saw that the Council of Ministers, the government,
Yeah,
has requested the resignation of the board of directors of GEBE.
right.
And was there any discussion of this during the press
No,
briefing?
so yesterday was unfortunately it was only the Minister of Justice that came. So it was totally on her. Actually, Romy was supposed to come, but apparently the minister was feeling sick, and so he didn't show up. But indeed, and I saw in the news or on Facebook. So you need to take it with a grain of salt, but apparently, the board of directors has said no, they're not planning on stepping down, and so I think it's really unfortunate the environment that's developing around GB because in the end, it's not constructive, right? A
No.
lot of energy is going to go into let's call it let's call it infighting, you know.
Well, it would also seem to me as we have a new CEO, or not
Which, by
yet.
the way, I've sent an invitation to come for a radio interview.
Okay,
So if somebody in GB is listening, or if he's
please
listening,
come.
please come. You know, it's just an honest conversation. You know,
Yeah,
it is what it is. So I
yeah.
think the sooner that people realize what's the current situation,
And
I
well,
think the better.
and by the way, we won't. There's rumor. The rumor mill out there is that they paid $15,000 for a USA Today interview. Whether that's true or not, I can tell you that we will not charge you $15,000 to have an honest conversation with us.
You know, and it's funny because I think as I was looking for the email address for the CEO, Thomas, and I saw a link to an interview and to the person who did the interview. And this is actually something that's been fairly common since my time even at SHTA. Normally, what happens is like a reputable newspaper or magazine, they do this sort of special insert into the
Mm,
paper. They send out a team. Usually,
mm,
it's kind of a good-looking guy and a good-looking woman,
mm.
and they say, "Oh, we're going to do a whole country piece, and we'd like to do interviews." But really, it's a kind of a separate business model on its own. They need to sell enough advertising to generate to validate that
Right,
piece. If they don't sell enough, it doesn't go ahead. So
right.
it really is kind. I don't know if puff piece. It's kind of a separate business model, and so I've seen them come, and people tend to get kind of sucked in because they see the name of the publication and think, "Oh, I'm going to be in,
Right.
this famous newspaper or magazine." And yeah, people need to be more careful about it. I've seen it over the years, and it happens all the time, and I
Well,
see people get sucked in.
right. I mean, because legitimate, news
Exactly.
organizations should be reporting the news, and I'm not going to charge you to come be interviewed.
And in real journalism venues, the reporting is a separate person, a separate division, a separate department from the advertising sales. You
By
don't
design,
combine the two.
by design,
Exactly.
by design,
Exactly.
by design.
And because, if you're an advertiser, but the truth about your business or isn't great, you need to report the truth regardless. And so indeed, there should be this separation between
you know,
advertising and journalism.
yeah. So let's hope that GEBE um, comes to takes you up on our offer.
So let's touch on. Actually, I think we touched on it on the show last week, but just to keep people realistic, right? Um, we have looked at the electricity rates around the Caribbean, and with the exception of Trinidad, which literally has oil under their feet, right?
Right.
A rate of between 30 to 35 cents, 32 cents to 35 cents per kilowatt hour is actually pretty standard throughout the Caribbean. And that's standard, like even in Curacao,
Mhm.
where land is cheaper, They actually have quite a few windmills, the wind turbine generators. I've seen that they have grid level storage. So what I'm saying is they do have alternative energy, and they do have what seems to be a more stable power grid, and still their costs are pretty comparable. So I just wonder how realistic is a reduction, and it's always possible, but I suspect that it'll happen at
But you pay for it somewhere else.
yeah, I suspect that it would have to mean government taking less tax revenue somewhere out of that process.
Mhm.
So just for the public, if there's a reduction, it's going to be 5%, maybe tops 10%. So, I know people who are thinking, oh, my bill will be half. No, it's not going to. And remember, the Luke made the promise that with the new generators, right? So remember, we're operating on what, 10 of these
20. We have 20 megawatts of diesel generators.
right. So containerized generators. So you're paying the
That run on. They
cost of
run on. They run on diesel.
right. So we're paying the cost of those, and we're paying diesel fuel, which is more expensive than the other fuels
Right.
that the big generators are running on. And they've promised that they wouldn't pass on those operationally higher expenses to the consumer. So GB has to eat that until they have their new generators, which could be, I don't even know if they've ordered them yet, but it looks like another year or 2 years before those are even going to be built and shipped here. So, just in fairness to GB, I don't know how much they can actually do. I think they probably need to make a lot of investments into their power grid as well. So,
I really do think that they need to be. They could. They could. I have talked about this till I'm blue in the face. If you put together a net metering program that encouraged people to
yes.
invest in alternative energy, in other words, you give me, 1,000 kilowatts a day back to the grid,
Mhm.
kilowatt hours a day back to the grid. Um, I'll pay you 50% of whatever my rate is that month. Towards that, reduce your bill by that amount. Or it should be way higher. It should be closer to 75 or 80% based on what research I've looked at. And if you did that, you would encourage private enterprise to invest in solar and other alternative energies, right? Send the power back, and your costs will go down because you'll need to be running your generators less because you'll get it may only be 3 to 5%
Mhm.
of the total need, but it's a step in the right direction. And so I've been looking at each month I with my house, right? Because I've got, I think, close to 50 panels on the house. I've been looking at, um, you know, if I got paid for the little bit that I send back, what would that be? If, for example, I exported 59 kilowatt hours back last billing cycle. It would have, if I got paid for that at full rate, it would have reduced my bill another um, $19, give or
Mhm.
take,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And you know and so my bill, instead of being um, was $127.64, it would have been $97.12. That's peanuts. They're small numbers, especially if you made it be half. You're talking about $9, but at least you would encourage people to invest in solar by doing this, because they reduce their own bill and they get a little bit of a kicker for what they get back because of what they give to you.
Right.
And it just seems foolish to me that we're not doing that. And it appears that we're not even considering it because there's every excuse known to man. The grid can't support it. I have a hangnail. It's gonna strap GB even further than it already is. I'm sorry, those are not real answers to me. We need facts, and those I'm just giving you real facts. We're talking like $10.
So I hear you, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see now how the relationship between GB. So the management team at GB, and then the um, supervisory board of directors, and then the shareholder, which is government. I mean, it seems that instead of being a united front in terms of working towards solutions, it seems like they're starting to move into this finger pointing and unhealthy
But
relationship, which in the end I think the consumers are going to pay for that.
well, yeah,
We're going to lose.
yeah, and this is a new new CEO, right?
Right.
You know,
Right.
and
So and government actually is supposed to be at arm's length, and so I understand the difficulties. On the one hand, you're accountable to the people for the reliability and the cost of utilities that are being delivered. Um, so but on the other hand, you have to remain arm's length away from the government-owned company and its board of directors. You can't actually instruct them. So it's going to be interesting to see
well,
what
it really
happens
it
now.
really comes down to this, though, right? You know, in if you're the owner of the company
Hmm.
and you have a vote of the shareholders and decide that we want a whole, and all the shareholders all vote that we want new people to sit on the board. Well, in democracy, right? He
Yeah.
with the most votes wins.
Yeah.
And I think there's only one shareholder. Is that true?
This government,
Yeah,
government's a shareholder.
yeah,
Yeah.
on behalf of the people of St. Martin.
Right.
So if the government says, "Sorry, you're done," well, guess what? You're done. They own the company.
Right. But the question then becomes, if the shareholder makes unreasonable requests for the supervisory board to execute, then what does the supervisory board do? Do they do what's right to the financial stability of the company, or do they just listen to the shareholder? It's a
At
tough.
no, it's simple, right? You don't own the company as a member of the board unless you are a shareholder. You do what the shareholder says, whether the shareholder is right or wrong.
So if the shareholder says drop the price in half, and you know that it's going to financially destroy GB, you would say as a shareholder that you need to, as a board member,
I'm not.
honor the
No,
request.
no, no. I'm not talking at the operational level. I'm talking about at the governance level.
But that's what's
Yeah,
happening.
no,
There,
but if the shareholder says you no longer enjoy my confidence and I want your resignation, right? That's different than imposing operational will on the company.
but I
So,
think that's the reality of what's happened. I think the prime minister said, "Look, here's a report, and in this report, it explains how you can drop the electricity rates by 15%." And my guess is that GB and the shareholders are saying, this is a guess, right?
mhm.
Is saying that's not financially feasible, right? And now the shareholder saying, okay, well, I don't like your answer, so you need to go. So that if
At the
that's the reality,
but-
that's tough.
listen, but at the end of the day, they own the company,
So
and what
me, I would say,
and
if
what
I was a shareholder, if I was a board member, I'd say, look, your request's unreasonable, and I would probably say, if you're going to force me, then I would resign, right? Because I can't honor your request,
right.
and then
Well,
indeed put somebody else here who will.
right. And if the shareholder, who is the government of St. Martin on behalf of the people of St. Martin, all right, can't pull it together, then it's really then we go back to the polls, right? That's democracy at work.
Mm.
It's why monopolies, especially those that are owned by the government, are a bad idea.
Yeah,
Um,
but it's tough. I can see both sides of this dilemma, so it'll be interesting, again, to see how it plays out. And unfortunately, it's the
we're
consumer who's
we're
going to
we're
probably
gonna all pay
suffer.
for it. Let
Yeah.
me do this. Let me take a quick break. It's 8:37. More St. Martin Insights news that matters to you with Emil Lee. Here is your Amstel Bright Entertainment Calendar, brought to you by Island 92 Z105.1 FM and Amstel Bright. More St. Martin Insights news that matters to you on the way. Welcome back to the program. Now, time for more St. Maarten Insights news that matters to you with our managing editor of Cree Broadcasting Network News, Emil Lee. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks again. Good to be here. So, again, yesterday they had the Council of Ministers press briefing where just the Minister of Justice showed up. And you know what? I give her credit. You know, when the other minister, uh, Patrice Gums, canceled because he wasn't feeling well, she still came. She said, "Look, I don't have a problem. I know it's just me. I'll hold the fort." And, you know,
Mhm.
a lot of other ministers, if it was just them, I think they would have said, "Well, let's just cancel the whole thing." And so, you know, again, I give her credit. So she came yesterday and she announced actually that they signed a 3.8 million euro 4-year program for prison reform initiatives. And so this is about rehabilitation, about education, about adjusting inmates as they come out of prison to reintegrate into society. She's signed an agreement with a entity in Aruba, TCTP. It's an organization also partially funded by the European Union, and all aimed at starting the softer part of prison reform now, not waiting for the new prison. So she laid out that the new prison will probably start construction at the end of this year, and then I think it was about a year and a half for the first phase of construction where they'll have more cells. The increase, I think, from I think it's 80 to like 120, something like that.
Mhm.
So, but you know, I give her credit. I think that for her to see that the rate of return, although they didn't have specific numbers and statistics, but anecdotally, what I do see or hear is that, you know, prisoners, inmates that are coming out are unfortunately too often getting back into sort of a toxic environment, going down the wrong path again and ending up back in prison. And so,
Mhm.
so she told an interesting story about this group in Aruba that they told her a story of where when one inmate came out, they actually met the inmate as they were coming out with his suitcases and put him into like a 1 year program in Italy on boats, and he did a great job, came back to Aruba and you know turned his life around. And so, you know, in the end I think for the community, it's if we don't find a way to rehabilitate and to help them deal with some of their environmental issues,
Mhm.
you know, we're going to continue to see upticks in crime. And so I think it's a good initiative, and it sounds structural. And I asked, is government also contributing? A lot of times, you know, when you see programs that are funded by somebody else,
Mhm.
Holland or European Union, the programs last for as long as that funding is in place, and then as soon as the funding runs out, those programs diminish. Oh, and
Right.
by the way, the program also addresses the staff in the prison and training and support, and so
Mhm.
it sounds like a very all-round holistic approach, and so and certainly taking into account the mental health aspects of it, or let's say mental wellness, which I think is different sometimes than
Right.
mental health. So she said, indeed, government is putting in money, and the objective is, of course, to make this a permanent feature in the justice system. So, hats off. I think it's a good structural approach to our whole justice chain.
Listen, because what we're doing now isn't working.
Right, right.
So they think that the new prison will be ready. We'll start construction the end of this year.
Yeah. So they had some hiccups in the tendering process,
Hmm.
and the there she's projecting that it will start by the end of this year
Hmm.
and it will be done the first quarter of 2027. So about a year and a half.
Okay.
So that's good. That's good
That
news that
that's that's
there's more space.
yeah. I mean, certainly it will steer us in a better trajectory, especially if we can start the other side of the equation as well, which is the educational and management side of how do we take someone who is in prison because they've been I hate to use these words, but I will, a hardened criminal, right? You don't end up in prison if you were, just speeding, right?
Right.
Generally speaking.
Right.
So you've done something bigger and worthy of uh, you know a prison term. So how do you then take those hardened criminals and get them um, back to becoming
Productive
product
members.
of
Yeah,
society?
I agree. And the other thing I mentioned is, and she's talked about this, is that government, number one, is slow to respond to things, and legislatively, a lot of our laws are really old. They're just not modern. Um, and I know from private sector side, from an employment side, I can imagine that people who come out with a record
Mhm.
have a harder time finding a job, of course. And so I personally believe that there needs to be sort of a phase in between. You could look at almost like an internship type program. The minister mentioned there are some countries have programs where government subsidizes the salary that you pay, but our labor laws are fairly restrictive. You have a 2-month trial period, and then you start getting into contracts, and so people are going to be less likely to give them a chance if the employment conditions are exactly the same as for everyone else. And so personally, I think they would be wise to look at some sort of a revised employment regulation for people who are getting restarted in the community.
I have mixed feelings about this, right?
Yeah.
Um, I do because at the end of the day, we are all responsible for our own actions.
Hmm.
And if you've chosen to do bad things,
But if you've gone in, you've served your time,
hmm
and you're coming out and you're trying to reintegrate, I do think that there's a transition period where they need some help to reintegrate. And you need to look at market conditions, you need to look at your employment laws, and make that a reasonable possibility, to give it a reasonable chance of success.
more St. Maarten Insights news that matters to you with Emil Lee in just a moment or two, 8:48, right here in the Northeast Caribbean. Oh, welcome back to St. Maarten Insights, news that matters to you right here in Fresh Air in the Morning. We got just about 8 minutes or so to go before top of the hour. What else happened, Mr. Lee?
So I don't know if you saw in the newspaper, there was a car on fire on Colbay Hill.
I saw that picture.
Yeah, so that would have been Tuesday night,
Mhm.
right? And so actually, before the whole Council of Ministers press briefing, I had a conversation with some of the staff that were there from GIS,
Mm.
the government
Mhm.
information team. And apparently, what happened is a scooter
Mhm.
ran into an SUV, um, crashed into them. Then I don't know which one caught on fire first, but the vehicles then caught on fire. And apparently, the driver of the SUV was with children in the car.
Mhm.
And then the driver of the scooter, another scooter came, picked them up, and they took off.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this is something that I've brought up with the Minister of Justice before, because I've heard from a couple of they have some of those roadside assistance companies. If there's an accident, they come out, they take pictures, they make a report, and they help you to deal with
Right.
the insurance companies, right? And apparently, the number of hit and run in England has gone up dramatically.
To be honest, I still don't understand that.
I saw
how
the
did-
video.
I know.
The truck was just
How do you,
moving. I don't know.
Yeah, that just blows my mind. I saw that and I'm like, it
But
also
again, the guy, whoever was driving the vehicle, took off. They just left, right?
it also makes me kind of wonder, what happened. It makes me wonder about the construction that was done to that building.
Yeah. I
But
agree.
that's a whole nother topic.
Right. I'm sure
Excuse me.
I'm sure they reinforced the wall now,
Yeah, well, I drove by yesterday and it's all pretty much
fixed up.
fixed up. I guess they're waiting for the windows to be installed and I think they were just waiting for the plaster to dry on the
Okay.
concrete. But yeah, what a mess. Thank
Yeah.
God thank God it happened at night
Exactly.
because it would have been a whole different story if it happened during the day.
So, but what I understand this, and again, this is via
Hmm.
is that the driver of the SUV has third-party insurance, which here a lot of vehicles have third-party insurance. I think the insurance companies say, I think once your vehicle's over like 4 years old or something, they won't give you comprehensive insurance anymore.
Well, you have to fight for it depending on the quality of the condition of the vehicle.
So what that means for our listeners is
Mhm.
when you have comprehensive insurance, it means the vehicle that you're driving itself is also insured.
Right.
So if a tree falls on your car, the insurance pays for your car. After a certain amount of time, and I thought it's about 4 years. So
Mhm.
here there are a lot of older cars. You can only get what's called third-party insurance, which means
Just the liability for who you damage.
when you hit somebody else's car, the insurance will pay for the other person's car,
But
not
then-
even your car.
Right.
So again, your car's in your driveway, a tree falls on it,
Tough.
third-party insurance, you're out of luck,
Right.
right? So in this case, the accident, normally what would happen is if two vehicles have an accident, both parties have third-party insurance, the other driver is at fault, their insurance would pay for your vehicle.
Right.
Now, what they pay is a whole nother story because
Right.
very often, the
They'll-
amount that they'll pay is reduced based on the age of the vehicle,
Right.
et cetera. So you'll never get enough money to buy another vehicle, but at least you're not out the total sum of the vehicle, right? So you're never going to get back enough money to buy the same vehicle. So,
Mhm.
but in this case, because it's the driver took off, they haven't apprehended the person. Unfortunately, it sounds like if the driver of the SUV only had third-party insurance, it's going to be a total loss for them. And the vehicle's a total loss. I mean,
Right.
you saw the fire.
Right.
You can't fix that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's really harsh. So in previous conversations, I brought this up with the Minister of Justice, and she said that there is the possibility of creating a fund that the insurance companies pay into, that in these incidents of like hit and runs, that there's a fund that the people can access to at least recover some of the money. But apparently that falls under the Minister of Justice and is on her list of pending items. So And so again, I brought up with the minister. First of all, great. I'm glad to see all the road controls. It needs to continue because you still see a lot of scooters without helmets and plates. And I brought up again this fact that a lot of the vehicles out there, you'll see they only have one license plate on the back of their car, or they have this sort of smoky plastic over the license plates, so you can't even see the license plate numbers, so their plates are obscured. And so this all contributes to people having doing in a hit and run, taking off and not being able to identify who the person is. So I think this is a fairly serious issue, and unfortunately, they don't have statistics to show how many hit and runs there are. But again, like I told you, I know from the roadside assistance companies that there's quite a few. Um, and again, it comes down to regular traffic controls enforcement. They need to make sure that people have insurance, have their proper documents in
I,
place.
I actually would love to at some point have a discussion about the whole insurance situation because I think it's crazy that you can't, after your vehicle's a certain age, can't have comprehensive insurance unless you go through like acts of God and argue with the insurance company and they come and inspect the vehicle. This vehicle could be perfectly flawless and it's 5 years old, right? It has a lot. We don't drive a lot here, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason that that shouldn't be able to be insured, and it just doesn't make sense. It almost seems like we have there should be um, we should move to a policy that doesn't I forget what the word is, but the liability, it's a no fault
Mm-hmm.
type of insurance. I buy insurance at no fault insurance, whether I'm at fault or not. I buy the insurance so you cover my damages, right? If I have an accident and I screwed up, I should still be able um, to have a claim. We should go to a no fault
And,
type of world in the insurance world.
and putting my former hat on as Minister of Health, I don't know, Sock, if you've noticed some of the local health insurance policies.
Mhm.
They will take your health insurance premiums, but if you read the contract, it says when you reach somewhere between 60 65, they will
Mhm.
no longer extend your health insurance. So it means they will take your insurance premiums
All
during
those years, and then when you
when you're
really need it, they tell you to take a long walk.
exactly. And
Mm,
and you know that's
not right.
that's fundamentally wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you say, look, in the period where you're most likely to claim, I'm going to forget it. We don't want you as a customer anymore.
That doesn't. It's just wrong. Just wrong. Thank you, sir. We look forward to seeing you next week.
For sure.
And it is just about 9 a.m. right here in the Northeast Caribbean. More St. Maarten Insights news that matters to you is on the way, or actually next week, same time. And Marine and Tropical Weather Update brought to you by K Beach Club and Restaurant is next. Stay with us. Well, my friends, now time for the Marine and Tropical Weather Update, as always brought to you by our good friends at K Beach Club and Restaurant. K like character, of course, right there on Simpson Bay Beach, one of my favorite spots on the planet. Simpson Bay Beach, and you can go check out K. Adaptive Sundays, great time to be over at K Beach Club and Restaurant. They'll take excellent, excellent care of you. Let's see what's going on weather-wise. Let's take a quick look Forecast for today from the Meteorological Department of St. Martin. Fair to partly cloudy, some brief showers are possible. 91 degrees Fahrenheit, our forecasted high. 33 degrees Celsius. Low temperature night, 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius. The sun will set tonight, 6:43 p.m. Rise tomorrow morning, 5:53 a.m. Winds out of the east-northeast. Light to moderate breezes, 7 to 14. A high pressure ridge is maintaining light to moderate winds across the region. Patches of moisture in the wind flow could give us a brief shower or two. Seas remaining slight for the next few days. We'll talk about what's out there. Area of Investigation 96L. We'll talk about that in a minute, but looks like that's staying to our north. Let's take a quick look around the region. In Phillipsburg, fair skies, 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Over in Anguilla in the Valley, partly cloudy, 85. Over in St. Jean and St. Bart's, fair skies, windy, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Across the way in Saba, partly cloudy, 85. Right here at the Island 92 Z105 Stonehenge Studios. Partly sunny skies, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity, 67%. UV is at 5. Winds out of the northeast about 5 miles an hour. Our barometric pressure, 29.87 inches and rising. Extended forecast, Friday, mostly sunny with a shower in places in the afternoon, 91. Saturday, humid, sunshine with a few clouds, 90. Same thing on Sunday, mostly sunny. Monday, mostly sunny, 89. Saharan dust is looking pretty dusty as I look across the region. You can hear it in my voice. And National Hurricane Center, as of 8 o'clock this morning, Area of Investigation 96L, a tropical wave over the central tropical Atlantic is producing disorganized shower activity. Environmental conditions are forecast to become more conducive for gradual development in the next few days. A tropical depression could form late this week, early next week, while the system moves west-northwestward to northwestward across the central tropical Atlantic and subtropical Atlantic. 10% of something forming in the 10% chance of something forming in the next 48 hours. 60% chance in the next 7 days. Now, I've looked at all of this system, by the way. Area of Investigation 96L is 1,776 miles to our southeast, right? It's out in the middle of nowhere, and all of the forecasted tracks at the moment take this well to our north, and we'll keep it that way. We're doing what I call the dodge and weave. I'm in monitor mode. I will do that for you and keep you posted if anything pops. I've looked at everything out through the 21st of August at this point, both the European model and the U.S. model. And while there's another wave that's coming off Africa, both the European and U.S. models don't forecast that wave to be a problem for us. But the thing that we have to remember, that is a long way away, long way away. So we're in monitor mode and we're watching for you. I sleep with my eastern eye open all hurricane season long. And right here's what I'm just going to find what Rob Lightbound wrote yesterday about this. He wrote, here we go. Another tropical wave pushing off the coast of Africa this weekend could be trouble. I'm going to think we keep a very close eye on tabs on this wave, and it could be a troublemaker. My recommendation is those of you in the Lesser Antilles should closely monitor the progress of this tropical wave once it splashes down in the eastern Atlantic around Friday or Saturday, and we will do that for you. And that's where we stand. Your Bob Marley, Jimmy Buffett moment is next, brought to you by Toppers. Welcome back to the program. Now, time for the Bob Marley Jimmy Buffett moment, brought to you by our good friends at Toppers. And we have nothing but good stuff going on at Toppers. Karaoke going on tonight, 8 o'clock. Breakfast is happening now at Toppers. You can't go wrong. Try them for lunch. Try them for dinner. Try them for all of the good stuff at Toppers. And go yourself a big bowl of meatballs, maybe some brisket at lunchtime. It all works. See, now I got myself hungry. Why do I got to stop talking about this? Darn. Anyway, here we go. The Bob Marley Jimmy Buffett moment, brought to you by Toppers.